I woke up in a nursing home, and my $1 million house was gone. I'm Edward Hartwell, a retired federal judge, and someone had been poisoning my coffee for months. The nurse said I'd been unconscious for 1 week. 1 week of my life, stolen. While I was drugged senseless in this nursing home, my son forged my signature and transferred $892,000 into his own accounts. My home of 30 years, sold without my knowledge. But here's what Brandon didn't know about his old man. 41 years on the federal bench teaches you things, like how to recognize financial fraud, how to document evidence, and exactly which FBI agents to call when family members commit federal crimes. My son thought he was stealing from a helpless old man. He had no idea he was robbing a federal judge who remembered every wire fraud case he'd ever tried. I'm about to give you a masterclass in how experience beats arrogance every single time. If you want to see justice served properly, hit that subscribe button and tell me where you're watching from, because this story gets very satisfying very quickly. This is how I turned my son's greed into his worst nightmare. It started 3 months after Martha died. That's when Brandon began showing up unannounced. "Dad, you're not taking care of yourself." He'd move my pill organizer. Again. "Let me help with your medications." I'd been managing federal court dockets for 4 decades. I think I could handle 7 daily pills, but Brandon saw weakness where there was only grief. His wife Cassandra was worse. "Edward, you're so forgetful lately." She'd smile that practiced smile. "Yesterday you asked me the same question twice." I hadn't asked her anything. I'd learned long ago to document conversations with people I didn't trust. The first sign I was being underestimated came during dinner at Brandon's house in February. I'd mentioned reviewing my estate documents. "Dad, that's too complicated for you now." Brandon's voice carried that patronizing tone I'd heard from countless attorneys who thought age meant incompetence. "Why don't you let me handle the finances? You know, like Mom always wanted." Martha never said that, ever. Cassandra chimed in. "We found this wonderful facility. Assisted living. You'd love it there." "I'm 73, not 93, and I live in my own home." "But Dad, the house is so big, so expensive to maintain." Brandon leaned forward. "What if something happens?" Something was already happening. I just didn't know what yet. The second sign came 3 weeks later. I'd gone to my study to review some consulting work. Yes, retired judges do consulting, and found my desk reorganized. "I was just tidying up," Brandon said when I confronted him. "All these papers everywhere. It's not safe." Those papers included client communications worth $50,000 in consulting fees, professional documents I'd specifically arranged in chronological order. "Dad, you're getting confused more often." Cassandra appeared beside him, holding a cup of tea. "Drink this. It'll help you relax." The tea tasted bitter, metallic, nothing like the Earl Grey I'd been drinking for 30 years. That night, I slept 14 hours straight. Federal judges don't sleep 14 hours. We barely sleep 6. I started paying attention. My morning coffee tasted different. My evening dinner sat heavy in my stomach. And every time I questioned something, Brandon's new Mercedes, Cassandra's designer handbags, their sudden interest in my well-being, they had the same response. "You're not thinking clearly, Dad." By March, they were visiting daily, always bringing food, always insisting I eat, always watching me with those calculating eyes. "We're worried about you living alone," Brandon said during one visit. "What if you fall? What if you forget to turn off the stove?" "I haven't cooked in that stove in weeks. You bring me dinner every night." "See? You're confused again." But I wasn't confused. I was being managed, systematically, professionally. The breaking point came when I found paperwork on my kitchen counter. Power of attorney documents, already signed, in my handwriting, except I'd never signed them. "When did I sign these, Brandon?" "Last week, Dad. You were having one of your foggy days, remember?" I remembered everything, every federal case, every legal precedent, every signature I'd ever written. This wasn't mine. Close, but not mine. That's when I knew I wasn't just being underestimated. I was being robbed. By my own son. Using the oldest trick in the white-collar crime playbook, elder financial abuse. But here's what Brandon didn't understand about federal judges. We've seen this before. We know how it works. We know how it ends. And we know exactly which federal statutes apply when someone forges legal documents to steal assets across state lines. I just needed to stay conscious long enough to prove it. The stakes became clear when I checked my bank statements in April. $892,000. Gone. Wire transfer to a Cayman Islands account I'd never opened. Authorization signature that looked like mine but wasn't. Brandon had taken everything except my federal pension. Smart enough to know that touching federal retirement funds would trigger automatic investigations. But $892,000? That was my life's work. Savings from 41 years on the federal bench. Martha's life insurance. The emergency fund we'd built for exactly this situation, except we'd planned for medical emergencies, not family theft. If I stayed silent, I'd lose more than money. My reputation. 41 years of federal service reduced to that senile old judge who got scammed by his own family. The legal community talks. Word spreads. Consulting clients disappear when they think you can't manage your own finances. My independence. Once Brandon had power of attorney, I'd never make another decision. Every choice filtered through him. Every dollar controlled by him. Every remaining year of my life managed by the man who drugged me. My dignity. This wasn't just theft. This was systematic elder abuse. The kind I'd seen in federal court dozens of times. Adult children who view their parents as ATM machines, who justify stealing with phrases like, "I'm going to inherit it anyway," and "he's not thinking clearly." But the real stake was justice itself. Brandon thought he'd found the perfect victim, an isolated widower with substantial assets and no close oversight. He'd studied the playbook, gradually increase medication, create confusion, establish legal control, transfer assets, then warehouse the victim where no one asks questions. It's federal wire fraud, elder abuse, forgery. 3 felonies minimum, 10 to 20 years in federal prison. The evidence was already there. Forged signatures on bank documents, wire transfers without authorization, systematic drugging documented in my blood work. Brandon just assumed I'd never be coherent enough to piece it together. He underestimated something crucial about federal judges. We don't just know the law. We know the system. We know which agencies investigate financial crimes. We know which prosecutors specialize in elder abuse. We know exactly how these cases develop and exactly how they end. And we have friends, colleagues who've worked financial crimes for decades, FBI agents who trust our judgment, U.S. attorneys who return our calls. Brandon had stolen nearly $1 million, but he'd left me something more valuable than money. He'd left me conscious, alert, and absolutely furious. In federal court, I'd seen dozens of defendants who thought they were too smart to get caught, who believed their victims were too weak to fight back, who assumed family relationships provided immunity from prosecution. They all learned the same lesson eventually. The law doesn't care about your relationships. It cares about your actions. The confrontation came on a Tuesday morning in late April. Brandon arrived with his usual patronizing smile and another cup of that bitter tea. "Morning, Dad. How are we feeling today?" "We?" I remained seated in my chair, hands steady. "I feel curious, Brandon." "Curious?" He set the tea down harder than necessary. "About the wire transfer. $892,000 to Grand Cayman Bank." His face changed, mask slipping. "Dad, you're confused again. Account number 4472883169. Open March 18th. You're imagining things." I pulled out my phone, opened my banking app, turned the screen toward him. Transaction history. March 20th. $892,000 wire transfer. Authorization signature. I paused. "Your handwriting, not mine." Brandon's jaw tightened. "Dad, you signed those papers." "Show me." "What?" "The original authorization. Show me." "I don't have it here." "Where is it?" "At the bank." "Which bank?" "First National." "Wrong bank. I used Chase. Have for 12 years. Silence. The kind that fills courtrooms when defendants realize their stories don't match evidence. Brandon tried a different approach. Dad, you're sick. You need help. I need my money back. It's not your money anymore. It's in trust. What trust? The family trust. For your care. I never created a family trust. You don't remember. I stood up, slowly, the way I used to stand when delivering sentences. Brandon, I remember every federal case I've tried, every statute I've applied, every criminal I've sent to prison for financial fraud. My voice stayed level, judicial. Do you know what the federal sentencing guidelines are for wire fraud over $500,000? His face went pale. 10 to 20 years. No parole. And when it involves elder abuse, sentencing enhancements apply. You can't prove anything. Blood test from Mercy General. Ambien levels 4 times prescribed dosage. Dated samples every week for 6 weeks. That's impossible. Dr. Jonathan Pierce, independent toxicologist, former federal witness in 12 financial crime cases. I smiled. The cold smile I saved for sentencing hearings. He's very thorough with his documentation. Brandon started pacing. Classic stress response. Guilty defendants always pace. Dad, listen. Maybe we can work something out. You mean negotiate? Yes. Like a plea agreement? No, I mean, because in federal court, plea agreements require full restitution. I sat back down. Plus cooperation with ongoing investigations. There's no investigation. Yet. The single word hung between us. Brandon stopped pacing. What do you want? My money back, today. I can't do that. Why not? It's invested. And in what? Silence. Brandon, in what? Crypto. How much? Most of it. How much did you lose? His shoulders slumped. 600,000. There it was. The real motive. Brandon hadn't just stolen from me. He'd gambled with the money. Lost most of it. And now needed to warehouse me somewhere quiet while he figured out how to cover the losses. So you drugged me, forged my signature, stole my life savings, and lost 2/3 of it on cryptocurrency speculation. Dad, I was trying to make it grow, for your future care, without my knowledge or consent. You weren't thinking clearly. I'm thinking clearly now. Are you? Brandon's voice turned sharp, desperate. Because from where I'm standing, you look like a confused old man making wild accusations against his own family. And from where I'm standing, you look like a defendant. The temperature in the room dropped 10 degrees. Dad, think about what you're saying. Think about what this would do to our family. Our family? I stood up again. Submit you dissolved our family the moment you put Ambien in my coffee. Brandon's phone buzzed. He glanced at it. His face went white. Problem? I asked. No, just... He looked at the phone again. Just work. But it wasn't work. I could see the screen from where I sat. It was a text from Cassandra. FBI just called the house. Brandon didn't know I could see it, and he definitely didn't know I'd been expecting that call. Brandon, I said quietly, you have about 10 minutes to tell me the whole truth. Before people arrive who won't be as patient as I've been. Brandon's hands were shaking now. What do you mean, people arriving? Sit down, son. Dad, what did you do? I didn't answer immediately. Let the silence build. Courtroom technique. Defendants fill silence with confessions when pressure builds properly. Brandon, in 41 years on the federal bench, I've learned that financial crimes leave digital footprints. Every wire transfer, every forged signature, every unauthorized access. You called the police? I called colleagues. What colleagues? People who investigate federal financial crimes. His face went gray. FBI? When someone commits wire fraud across state lines, it becomes federal jurisdiction automatically. I remained seated, calm, especially when the fraud involves forged documents and elder abuse. Dad, please, think about this. I have been thinking for 6 weeks while you thought I was unconscious. That hit him. The realization that his victim had been awake, aware, planning. You've been pretending. Not pretending, recovering, documenting, preparing. Preparing what? A case. And I reached into my jacket pocket, pulled out a small digital recorder, the kind federal witnesses use for evidence collection. This conversation, for example. your admission about the cryptocurrency losses, your acknowledgement of the wire transfers, your confirmation that you've been managing my medications. Brandon lunged for the recorder. I'd expected that. Moved it out of reach. 27 minutes of recorded admission, Brandon. More than enough for probable cause. You can't use that. I'm your son. Family relationships don't create immunity from prosecution. I turned off the recorder. As you're about to learn. His phone buzzed again. Another text from Cassandra. This time I couldn't see the screen, but Brandon's reaction told me everything. They're at the house, aren't they? I asked. Who? Federal agents. Brandon slumped into a chair. Dad, please. We can fix this. You can't fix federal wire fraud. The money is evidence now, but it's gone. Most of it. That makes it worse, not better. I stood up, walked to the window. Brandon's new Mercedes was parked in my driveway. Silver S-Class, $85,000 retail. Nice car. What? Your Mercedes. Paid cash? I financed it. With what collateral? Silence. Brandon, when federal investigators freeze assets, they freeze everything purchased with stolen funds. Your car, Cassandra's jewelry, your house down payment. Down payment? You bought a house. $750,000 in Westfield. Closed March 28th. 8 days after you transferred my money. His mouth fell open. Federal agents are very thorough about tracing stolen assets. They'll seize everything purchased with my money. Everything. How do you know about the house? I have friends in interesting places. That was only partially true. I had one friend in a very specific place. Agent Rebecca Shaw, FBI Financial Crimes Division. She'd worked elder fraud cases for 15 years, and she owed me a favor from a case I'd handled in 2019. One phone call, that's all it took. One call to someone who knew how to trace wire transfers and identify forged documents. Dad, I never meant for this to happen. You never meant to get caught. No, I mean, Brandon, intention doesn't matter in federal court. Actions matter, evidence matters, and you provided plenty of both. A car pulled into my driveway. Black sedan, government plates. That would be Agent Shaw, I said quietly. Brandon looked out the window, saw the car, saw the woman getting out. Professional suit, federal credentials visible on her belt. Dad, what do I do? Tell the truth, all of it, immediately. Will that help? In federal court? Sometimes, if you cooperate fully and provide complete restitution. I can't provide restitution. I lost the money. I turned from the window, looked at my son, really looked at him, saw the man I'd raised, the boy who'd once wanted to be a lawyer like his old man. Then you're going to prison, son. Agent Shaw knocked twice. Professional. Measured. Brandon Hartwell? Yes. Agent Rebecca Shaw, FBI Financial Crimes Division. We need to talk. Brandon looked at me, panic in his eyes. Dad, go with her, son. Answer her questions honestly. They spent 2 hours in my dining room. I could hear fragments through the door. Brandon's voice getting higher, more desperate. Agent Shaw's voice staying level, professional. When they finished, Agent Shaw approached me alone. Your Honor, we'll need a formal statement. Of course. Tomorrow morning, Federal Building, 9 a.m. I'll be there. Brandon stood in my hallway like a condemned man, which, legally speaking, he was. Dad, she says they need to freeze our accounts. All accounts connected to the stolen funds. That's everything we have. Then you should have thought of that before you stole everything I had. Cassandra arrived 20 minutes later, stormed into my house without knocking. Edward, what have you done? I've reported financial crimes to appropriate authorities. You've destroyed our family. Your husband destroyed our family when he drugged me. She turned to Brandon. You told me he wouldn't remember. You told me the medication would... Cassandra, stop talking. Brandon's voice was sharp. Just stop. But it was too late. Another admission. Another piece of evidence. Mrs. Hartwell, Agent Shaw said quietly, I need to speak with you as well. About what? Your knowledge of the medication regimen, your involvement in the financial transactions, your signature on several banking documents. Cassandra's face went white. I want a lawyer. That's your right. We can arrange that tomorrow. After they left, I sat in my study. The house felt different, quiet in a way it hadn't been in months. No more unexpected visits. No more bitter tea. No more patronizing conversations about my declining mental state. My phone rang. Martha's sister, Helen. Edward, I just heard from Diane Foster. She says Brandon's in trouble with the FBI? Yes. What kind of trouble? Federal wire fraud, elder abuse, forgery. Long pause. How much money? Nearly $1 million. Oh my God. Edward, I'm so sorry. Thank you, Helen. Is there anything I can do? Pray for my son. He's going to need it. The real humiliation came 3 days later, at Martha's memorial service. The 1-year anniversary I'd planned to spend quietly, privately, remembering my wife. Instead, I spent it watching FBI agents serve federal warrants. The whole congregation saw it. 30 years of friends, fellow church members, professional colleagues, they watched Brandon being led away in handcuffs during the closing hymn. Why now? Cassandra screamed at the agents. Why here? Federal crimes don't observe memorial services, Agent Shaw replied. Cassandra turned to me. You planned this. You wanted to humiliate us. I planned to honor my wife's memory. You brought federal agents here by committing federal crimes. Everyone's watching. Yes, they are. That was the point. Not humiliation for its own sake, but public accountability. The legal community needed to know that Edward Hartwell wouldn't tolerate financial crimes, even from family, especially from family. Judge Patricia Collins approached me after the service. 30 years of mutual respect, professional courtesy. Edward, I'm sorry about all this. Thank you, Patricia. What's the prognosis? Federal wire fraud over $500,000, elder abuse enhancements, probably 15 to 20 years. For Brandon? For both of them. She shook her head. After everything you taught him about the law? Some lessons have to be learned the hard way. That evening my doorbell rang. Brandon stood on my porch. No handcuffs this time, but ankle monitor visible under his pants. Dad, can we talk? Are you wearing a wire? What? No. Recording device? FBI surveillance equipment? Dad, no, it's just me. I let him in, against my better judgment. What do you want, son? I want to apologize. Okay. And I want to ask, is there any way to fix this? I studied his face, saw exhaustion, fear, desperation. Fix what? The charges, the investigation, our relationship. 3 different things, Brandon. But the charges are federal. I can't dismiss federal charges. But you have influence. Not over criminal prosecution. That's the Justice Department. You could ask them to what? Ignore elder abuse? Overlook wire fraud? To consider our family situation. I was quiet for a long moment. When I spoke, my voice was softer than it had been in weeks. Brandon, I spent 41 years on the federal bench. 41 years watching families destroyed by financial crimes. Sons stealing from mothers. Daughters embezzling from fathers. Adult children who view their parents as sources of money rather than sources of love. Dad, I never. You drugged me for 6 weeks. You stole nearly $1 million. You forged legal documents. You attempted to warehouse me in a nursing facility while you spent my life savings on cryptocurrency speculation. But I'm your son. Yes, you are. And that makes it worse, not better. He started crying then, 45 years old, crying like the child who used to come to me when he was scared. Dad, I'm terrified. You should be. What's going to happen to me? You're going to be prosecuted under federal law. You're going to be convicted. You're going to serve significant prison time. How long? 15 years minimum. 20 if they prove systematic elder abuse. And after? After what? After prison. Will we? I looked at my son, really looked at him, saw the man he'd become, the choices he'd made. I don't know, Brandon. Ask me in 15 years. The federal investigation moved faster than I'd expected. Agent Shaw called me on a Friday morning. Your Honor, we need to meet. There's been a development. What kind of development? the kind that requires immediate action. We met at the federal building downtown, same courthouse where I'd served for 4 decades. Walking through those halls felt like coming home. Agent Shaw led me to conference room 412, my old chambers. The irony wasn't lost on either of us. Your Honor, we've traced the wire transfers. It's bigger than we initially thought. She spread documents across the table: bank statements, wire transfer records, account information. Your son didn't just steal from you. This appears to be a pattern. At least 6 other elderly victims over the past 18 months. I felt the air leave my lungs. 6 others? Mrs. Eleanor Whitman, 81, cognitive decline. Brandon managed her medications for 4 months before transferring $340,000 to the same Cayman account. How did he know her? Cassandra worked at her assisted living facility. The pieces clicked together. Cassandra had access. Brandon had the financial knowledge. Together, they developed a system. Dr. Harold Morrison, 79, retired physician, early dementia, lost $520,000. Same method? Medication management, forged power of attorney, asset transfer. Mrs. Ruth Campbell, 83, widow, no children. Brandon volunteered to help with her estate planning. $290,000. 6 victims, over $2 million total. My son hadn't just betrayed me. He'd created a criminal enterprise targeting vulnerable seniors. Agent Shaw, what are the enhanced penalties for multiple counts of elder fraud? Life in prison. No parole. I sat down heavily. This wasn't simple family betrayal anymore. This was organized criminal activity, systematic predation. There's more, Your Honor. And she handed me another document. FBI surveillance photos. We've been watching Brandon and Cassandra for 6 weeks, since you first called me. They're actively targeting a 7th victim. Mrs. Dorothy Fletcher, 87. They approached her 3 weeks ago. Have they stolen from her yet? Not yet, but we documented them visiting her home twice. Cassandra brought homemade cookies. Brandon offered to review her financial documents. The same pattern, the same approach, the same criminal methodology they'd used on me. We need to stop this. We are, today. Agent Shaw checked her watch. Federal agents are executing search warrants right now. Brandon's house, Cassandra's workplace, their bank records, all digital key communications. What about Mrs. Fletcher? Safe? We've informed her family. She's staying with her daughter in Colorado until this is resolved. My phone buzzed. Text message from an unknown number. Dad, they arrested Cassandra at work. FBI everywhere. Please call me. I showed the message to Agent Shaw. That's Brandon. He's about to be arrested too. Where? His office. In about... She checked her phone. 15 minutes. I felt a strange combination of relief and sadness. Relief that no more seniors would be victimized. Sadness that my son had become the kind of criminal I'd spent my career prosecuting. Agent Shaw, I need to ask you something. Of course. In your professional opinion, based on the evidence you've gathered, what's the likelihood of conviction? 100%. We have documentation of everything: bank records, forged signatures, video surveillance, recorded conversations. And sentencing? For 6 counts of elder fraud involving over $2 million, plus the systematic nature of the crimes, your son is looking at life without parole. Life without parole. My son would die in federal prison. Unless, Agent Shaw continued, unless what? Unless he cooperates fully, provides complete restitution to all victims, testifies against any co-conspirators. What would that reduce the sentence to? 15 to 20 years, with possibility of parole after 12. Still a long time. Still the end of Brandon's life as he'd known it. My phone rang. Brandon. Answer it, Agent Shaw said. But keep him talking. I pressed the speaker button. Brandon, Dad, they're here. FBI agents. They have warrants. I know. You know, Dad, what's happening? You're being arrested for federal financial crimes. Not just against you, against 6 other people, Brandon. Silence. 6 others? Elderly victims. People you and Cassandra systematically drugged and robbed. Dad, I can explain. No, you can't. We were trying to help them. Their families weren't taking care of them. By stealing their money, by managing their assets, without their knowledge or consent. They weren't competent to make financial decisions. And there it was, the rationalization, the same justification every white-collar criminal uses. They weren't stealing, they were helping. Brandon, listen to me carefully. Okay. You have about 30 seconds before agents arrest you. You have one chance to do the right thing. What do you mean? Cooperate fully. Provide complete information about every victim. Help them recover every dollar possible. And if I don't, life in prison without parole. I could hear agents in the background. Footsteps, professional voices. Dad, I'm scared. You should be. Brandon Hartwell? Agent Shaw spoke into the phone. This is Agent Shaw, FBI Financial Crimes. You need to come with us. Dad? Go with them, son. Tell them everything, all of it. The line went dead. Agent Shaw looked at me. How do you feel? It was a good question. How did I feel watching my son arrested for federal crimes? How did I feel knowing he'd victimized multiple elderly people? How did I feel about the complete destruction of our family relationship? I feel like a federal judge who's done his job. And like a father? I was quiet for a long moment. Like a father who failed to teach his son that crime has consequences. Your Honor, you didn't fail. You reported criminal activity. You protected future victims. You upheld the law. I know. 6 elderly people will get their money back because of your courage. I know that too. But knowledge doesn't eliminate pain. Understanding justice doesn't reduce grief. Agent Shaw, what happens next? Federal grand jury, indictment, arraignment, trial. Timeline? 4 to 6 months for trial, sentencing shortly after. Will you need my testimony? Extensively. You're the primary witness for 5 of the 7 counts. 5 of 7 counts. My testimony would help convict my son of federal crimes. The same son I'd taught to ride a bicycle. The same son who'd sat in my courthouse as a child, watching me deliver justice. Now I deliver justice against him. Agent Shaw? Yes? Make sure every victim gets their money back. We'll do our best. Not your best. Every dollar, every cent. Understood. I stood up, walked to the window, looked down at the federal courthouse plaza where I'd walked thousands of times over 4 decades. Your Honor? Yes? For what it's worth, you did the right thing. I nodded. In 41 years on this bench, I've learned that doing the right thing rarely feels good. But it's still right. Yes, it's still right. The federal courthouse was packed for Brandon's arraignment. I sat in the gallery, watching my son stand before Judge Patricia Collins, the same colleague who'd attended Martha's memorial service, the same friend who'd expressed sympathy about my family situation. Now she was reading federal charges against my son. Count 1, wire fraud in violation of 18 U.S.C. Section 1443. Count 2, elder abuse in violation of federal statute. Count 3, forgery of legal documents. Count 4, conspiracy to commit financial fraud. 7 counts total. Multiple victims, multiple jurisdictions. Brandon stood at the defendant's table wearing an orange jumpsuit. Federal Detention Center uniform. No bail granted due to flight risk and severity of charges. Mr. Hartwell, do you understand the charges against you? Yes, Your Honor. Do you understand that these charges carry potential sentences of life imprisonment? Brandon's voice cracked. Yes. How do you plead? His attorney whispered something. Brandon looked back at me. Our eyes met across the courtroom. Not guilty, Your Honor. I wasn't surprised. Most defendants plead not guilty initially, even when the evidence is overwhelming. Judge Collins set a trial date, March 15th, 2025, 3 months away. Mr. Hartwell, given the severity of these charges and the strength of the evidence, I strongly encourage you to consider cooperation with federal prosecutors. Yes, Your Honor. Court is adjourned. I waited until Brandon was led away before standing. Didn't want him to see the pain in my face. Didn't want him to think this was easy for me. Agent Shaw approached me in the hallway. How are you holding up? I've had better days. The prosecution wants to meet next week. Go over your testimony. I'll be ready. Your Honor, there's something else. What? Cassandra wants to make a deal. I wasn't surprised. Cassandra was always the more pragmatic of the two. What kind of deal? Full cooperation, complete testimony against Brandon, help recovering all stolen assets. In exchange for reduced charges, probably 10 years instead of life. And Brandon? Still facing life without parole unless he cooperates too. Has he indicated willingness to cooperate? Not yet. His attorney thinks they can beat the charges. I laughed, actually laughed. Beat federal wire fraud charges with documented evidence? Some people never accept reality. Some people haven't spent 41 years watching federal prosecutions. The trial preparation took 3 months. Detailed interviews with federal prosecutors, review of evidence, practice testimony sessions. I learned more about Brandon's criminal enterprise than I'd wanted to know. The systematic approach, the careful targeting, the sophisticated money laundering through cryptocurrency exchanges and offshore accounts. Most disturbing was the psychological manipulation. Brandon and Cassandra had studied elder abuse techniques. They knew exactly how to isolate victims, how to create dependency, how to justify their actions. Your Honor, Prosecutor Sarah Martinez, explained during one session, your son didn't just commit crimes of opportunity. He created a professional victimization system. How sophisticated. They had spreadsheets, target identification criteria, timeline templates for asset extraction. Spreadsheets. My son had created Excel documents for stealing from elderly people. What about the other victims? Are they testifying? Those who are mentally competent, yes. Mrs. Whitman, Dr. Morrison, Mrs. Campbell, Mrs. Fletcher. She was never actually victimized thanks to your intervention, but she'll testify about their approach. 6 weeks before trial, Brandon's attorney requested a meeting. Your Honor, my client would like to speak with you. About what? About possibly changing his plea. I can't influence his legal decisions. He's not asking for influence. He's asking for guidance. Against my better judgment, I agreed to meet with Brandon. Federal Detention Center, glass partition between us, recorded conversation for legal purposes. Dad? Brandon. He looked terrible. 30 pounds lighter, gray hair, deep circles under his eyes. How are you? I've been better. Dad, I've been thinking about what you said. What did I say? About doing the right thing. And? I want to plead guilty. I was quiet for a moment. Why? Because you're right. What we did was wrong. All of it. What about Cassandra? She already pled guilty, testified against me last week. That surprised me. She testified? Everything, the whole operation, names, dates, amounts, methods. How do you feel about that? Relieved. Relieved? Dad, carrying the secret was killing me. Pretending it was okay, justifying it, making excuses. So you'll plead guilty? To everything, full cooperation, complete restitution. Brandon, do you understand what that means for your sentence? 15 to 20 years. You'll be 65 when you get out. I know. Your career is over. Your reputation is destroyed. Your marriage is probably finished. I know all of that. Then why? He was quiet for a long moment. Because I want to be able to look at myself in the mirror again. And because I want my father to be proud of me, even if it's too late. I felt tears forming. First time I'd cried since Martha's funeral. Brandon, I'm proud that you're finally telling the truth. Is that enough? It's a start. 3 days later, Brandon entered a guilty plea to all 7 federal charges. Judge Collins accepted the plea and scheduled sentencing for 6 weeks later. Mr. Hartwell, by pleading guilty, you've saved the court significant time and expense. You've spared the victims from having to relive their trauma through testimony, and you've accepted responsibility for your actions. Yes, Your Honor. However, the severity of these crimes and the systematic nature of your criminal enterprise requires significant punishment. She opened her sentencing folder. 18 years in federal prison, no parole eligibility for 12 years, complete restitution to all victims, forfeiture of all assets purchased with stolen funds. Brandon stood silently as the sentence was read. Mr. Hartwell, do you have anything to say? Yes, Your Honor. Proceed. I want to apologize to every victim, to their families, to the court. He paused. And to my father, who taught me better than this. Judge Collins nodded. Court is adjourned. As Brandon was led away, he looked at me one final time. I love you, Dad. I love you too, son. And despite everything, the betrayal, the crimes, the destroyed trust, that was still true. The ripple effects began immediately. Within 24 hours of Brandon's sentencing, the story hit national media. Federal judge's son sentenced for elder fraud scheme. CNN, Fox News, Wall Street Journal. My phone rang constantly. Reporters wanting interviews, legal analysts seeking commentary, victims' advocacy groups requesting statements. I declined all media requests. Justice had been served. The story didn't need my narration, but the consequences were far-reaching. The Federal Judicial Council launched an investigation into whether Brandon had used his family connection to me for criminal advantage. After a 3-week review, they concluded he hadn't. But they recommended new disclosure requirements for families of federal judges. The State Bar Association initiated disciplinary proceedings against Brandon's law license. Automatic disbarment for federal felony convictions. His 15-year legal career officially ended. Mercy General Extended Care faced federal investigation for their role in the scheme. How had they allowed systematic drugging of patients? How had they failed to notice medication irregularities? The facility lost its Medicare certification. Closed permanently 6 months later, the victims began recovering their money. Mrs. Eleanor Whitman received $340,000 plus interest. Her daughter called to thank me personally. Mr. Hartwell, without your courage, my mother would have died penniless. Dr. Harold Morrison recovered $520,000. His medical bills were finally paid. He sent a handwritten note. Thank you for proving that justice still exists. Mrs. Ruth Campbell got back $290,000. She donated $50,000 to elder abuse prevention programs in Martha's memory. The other victims received full restitution as well. Over $2 million recovered. Lives rebuilt. Dignity restored. But recovery wasn't complete for everyone. Mrs. Dorothy Fletcher, the woman Brandon and Cassandra had been targeting when arrested, suffered a heart attack 3 weeks after the trial. Stress-related, her doctor said. The trauma of learning how close she'd come to victimization. She recovered physically. Emotionally was more complicated. I keep wondering, she told me during a phone call, what if you hadn't stopped them? What if I'd lost everything? But you didn't. But I could have. So easily. The psychological impact rippled through the senior community. Fear of family members, suspicion of helpful neighbors, reluctance to trust anyone with financial matters. Brandon's children faced their own consequences. His daughter Emma, 16, changed her last name to her mother's maiden name. Couldn't bear the association with federal crimes. His son Tyler, 14, refused to visit Brandon in prison. I don't have a father anymore, he told Cassandra. Cassandra served 3 years in federal prison, released early for cooperation and good behavior, moved to Oregon with the children, started over with a new identity. She wrote me a letter after her release. Mr. Hartwell, I know words can't repair what we did, but I want you to know that I think about those elderly people every day. I think about the fear we caused, the trust we destroyed. I'm spending the rest of my life trying to make amends. I never responded to the letter. Some apologies can't be accepted, only acknowledged. The financial impact on Brandon's family was devastating. Their $750,000 house was seized by federal marshals, sold at auction for $680,000. Proceeds went to victim restitution. Brandon's Mercedes was confiscated. Cassandra's jewelry collection, purchased with stolen money, was liquidated. Their children qualified for need-based financial aid for college, full scholarships for children of convicted federal criminals, a program I hadn't known existed. The professional consequences extended beyond Brandon. 3 other attorneys who'd worked with him on estate planning faced Bar Association investigations. None were criminally charged, but all received professional sanctions for failing to report suspicious activities. The assisted living facility where Cassandra had worked implemented new background check requirements, annual financial crime training for all employees. 6 months after sentencing, I received an unexpected visitor. Agent Rebecca Shaw knocked on my door on a Tuesday morning. "Your Honor, do you have a few minutes?" "Of course. There's been a development." She handed me a folder, FBI investigation report. "We've identified 3 more potential victims, elderly people who reported suspicious financial activity involving people matching Brandon and Cassandra's descriptions." "When did this happen?" 2 years ago, before you were victimized. These cases were never reported as connected crimes." 3 more victims, 3 more families destroyed by Brandon's greed. What's the total now? 10 confirmed victims, $3.2 million in documented theft. I sat down heavily. The scope of Brandon's criminal enterprise was even larger than we'd known. "Are you reopening the investigation?" "No. The statute of limitations has passed on the older cases, and Brandon's already serving 18 years. Additional charges wouldn't increase his sentence." "What about the victims?" 2 have died. Natural causes, but their families never recovered the stolen money. The 3rd victim, Mrs. Helen Rodriguez, is still alive. She'd given up hope of ever seeing her $125,000 again. "Can we help her?" "Actually, yes. Brandon had one asset we hadn't identified, a cryptocurrency wallet he'd hidden from federal seizure, worth about $140,000. Enough to compensate Mrs. Rodriguez?" "With interest." 2 weeks later, I personally delivered a check to Mrs. Helen Rodriguez. She was 91 years old, living with her granddaughter in a small apartment. "I thought that money was gone forever," she said, holding the check with shaking hands. "Justice moves slowly sometimes, Mrs. Rodriguez, but it moves. Will you thank the judge who made this possible?" I smiled. "I'll make sure he gets the message." That evening, I visited Martha's grave for the first time since the trial. "It's over," I told her. "Brandon's in prison. The victims have their money back. Justice was served." The wind rustled through the oak trees around her headstone. "I know you'd want me to forgive him, and I will, eventually. But forgiveness doesn't mean forgetting, and it doesn't mean there aren't consequences." I placed fresh flowers on her grave, white roses, her favorite. "I think about what you'd say about all this, about family loyalty versus legal duty, about loving someone while holding them accountable. You'd probably remind me that being a good father sometimes means letting your children face the consequences of their choices." The sun was setting, golden light filtering through the trees. "I miss you, Martha. I miss having someone to talk to about all this." But as I walked back to my car, I realized something. I wasn't alone. I had a community of people who'd been helped by my decision to speak up. Victims who'd recovered their dignity along with their money. Families who'd avoided devastating financial losses. Justice had been served, and sometimes that has to be enough. 2 years have passed since Brandon's sentencing. I've established new routines, new boundaries, new relationships. Every Tuesday, I volunteer at the Senior Legal Aid Society, help elderly people review financial documents, identify potential fraud, protect themselves from predators. It's meaningful work, preventive justice, stopping crimes before they happen. Mrs. Dorothy Fletcher has become a close friend. She volunteers with me, sharing her near-miss story with other seniors. "I want people to know it can happen to anyone," she tells the groups we speak to. Smart people, educated people, people who think they're too careful to be victimized. The speaking engagements have multiplied. Police departments, attorney general offices, elder care facilities, federal training seminars. I tell Brandon's story, not for sensationalism, but for education. Financial crimes against the elderly succeed because families protect secrets, I explain to audiences. The victims feel shame. The perpetrators count on silence. Justice requires sunlight. People always ask the same question. How could you turn in your own son? My answer has evolved over time. I didn't turn in my son. I reported federal crimes. The fact that my son committed those crimes was his choice, not mine. But don't you feel guilty? I feel guilty that I didn't notice sooner. I feel guilty that other people were victimized while I was unconscious. I feel guilty that I raised a son who could systematically prey on vulnerable elderly people. But I don't feel guilty for choosing justice over family loyalty, because real love sometimes requires difficult choices. Brandon writes me letters from federal prison, once a month, consistently. I read every letter. I don't respond to all of them. His most recent letter included this passage. Dad, I've been thinking about something you said during my sentencing, about how being a good father sometimes means letting your children face consequences. I hated that statement for 2 years, but I understand it now. You didn't send me to prison. You gave me a chance to take responsibility for my actions. For the first time in my adult life, I'm being held accountable for what I've done. And as strange as it sounds, that feels like a gift. Maybe. Prison is rarely a gift, but accountability can be. He's enrolled in college courses, working toward a degree in social work, planning to help elderly people when he's released. I want to spend the rest of my life making amends, he wrote, not just to our family, but to the community I hurt. It's a good goal. Whether he'll achieve it remains to be seen. Cassandra sends birthday cards to my grandchildren, through me. She doesn't have my address, and I don't give them hers, but I make sure Emma and Tyler know their mother is thinking about them, and the children are doing well. Emma graduated high school with honors, full scholarship to Northwestern University, plans to study law. I want to prosecute financial crimes, she told me last month. People like my father. Tyler is a junior in high school, star of the debate team, captain of the chess club. He visits me every other weekend. We don't talk much about Brandon. Tyler isn't ready for that conversation yet. Maybe someday. The house feels different now. Peaceful, secure. I've installed new security systems, changed all the locks, updated my estate planning with multiple safeguards. But the real security comes from community. Friends who check on me regularly. Neighbors who notice unusual activity. Professional colleagues who understand the warning signs of elder abuse. I've learned that isolation enables victimization, connection prevents it. Last month, I received an unexpected call from Agent Shaw. Your Honor, I wanted you to know. We just arrested 3 people in Florida. Elder fraud scheme. Same methods Brandon and Cassandra used. Did my case help with the investigation? Your case created the template, the evidence collection procedures, the prosecution strategy. We're using your model nationwide now. Good. 15 elderly victims, $4.2 million recovered. Because of Brandon's case? Because of your courage to report Brandon's case. Courage. That's not how it felt at the time. It felt like necessity, like duty, like the only choice that preserved my integrity. But maybe courage is just doing the necessary thing when it's difficult. I have a new routine now. Every evening I sit in Martha's chair in our living room. Our living room, not mine alone. I read. I listen to classical music. I plan tomorrow's volunteer work. And sometimes I think about families, about love that enables versus love that empowers, about the difference between protecting someone and protecting them from consequences. Being a good father, I've learned, isn't about preventing your children from failing. It's about teaching them that failure has consequences, and that taking responsibility for those consequences is the first step toward redemption. Brandon is learning that lesson now, at 60, in federal prison, with 12 years left to serve. Better late than never. If you've listened to this story, I hope you'll remember something. Elder abuse succeeds in silence. It fails in sunlight. If you see something suspicious, report it. If you experience something wrong, speak up. Justice delayed is still justice, but justice denied is injustice forever. Where are you watching this from? I'd love to know that this story reached you, wherever you are. Thank you for listening.